Welcome back, everyone. This is Syed Amjad, tutor for SBR at VIFHE. As you all know, exam is approaching. So this session is exclusively for you guys to understand how we are going to answer our question in the exam. Because the way you are answering the question will ensure how much maximum marks you can gain. So in this session, I'm going to give you an idea how we can gain the maximum marks by answering in a professional way, professionalism. Remember, whenever we have an orientation session, we always discuss about the professionalism. So today's session is exclusively for the idea how we are going to answer our question within the exam session. So to ensure we are gaining maximum marks out of it, or in a way how examiner wants you to get your answer. So let's start. Before going into an example, I'll be discussing the most important things here. First thing, whenever you have a question in your exam situation, scenarios, first thing is you need to read the question carefully. So reading is really important. Reading, the most important. So while reading a question, you need to understand that what are the key areas that we need to focus, right? Or you should be understanding the scenario of the question. So scenario is really important for us. So once you have understood the scenario, the next thing comes here, you need to look into the requirements. What are the basic requirements of the question? So while reading the scenario, you will be able to find out some most important areas which students normally skip. So you need to point out those areas, or you can highlight those specific points. So whenever you are answering your question, you must mention those areas in your answer, because examiner has intentionally input these things or these important areas so that the student should focus on these areas. So once you have read out the scenario and you have understood the requirement, so you are going to start answering your question. While answering your question, you need to understand the first thing is you need to mention which standard application is required. Standard application. So you need to mention the name of the standard. Most of the time, this standard is given by the examiner within the scenario. But if there is a problem you were not provided by the examiner, in most of the time you can gauge yourself which standard applies in this specific situation. So once you have identified or determined what standard actually applies, so first thing is you need to provide the specific guidelines of the standards of that specific standard. Specific guidelines mean what this standard specifies. Now here important thing is you are not required to reply, or you're not required to mention the whole standard in your answer. You need to apply the specific guidelines of the standard which is required for this standard, for this scenario. Specific requirements. I'm going to give you an example of it, but right now, the specific guidelines of the standard. Then, once you have mentioned these specific guidelines, the second step would be you need to apply those guidelines, apply standard guidelines to the scenario. So this is the second step you need to follow. And this would always remain same whenever you are answering a question in SBR examination. Third thing is, once you have applied all the guidelines to the scenario, the third and most important thing is you need to provide a conclusion. So, what you think, what should be done with this scenario, with this situation? Then there comes some sort of ethical questions. In that ethic question, you need to follow the same thing, same idea, same principle, same three guidelines, but you need to provide some ethical approaches. What are the ethical approaches available to an accountant who is involved in such unethical activities, or who is forced to involve into such unethical activities, which includes, number one, he must have to discuss with the senior manager, with the immediate manager. If he don't agree with the suggested solution provided by the accountant, then he might thinking of discussing with the most senior individual or board of directors. If that does not work out, then he might approach his professional body for a professional advice. And if nothing works, then the individual accountant might considering leaving the position, rather involving into unethical activities. So this is something, an additional idea about the question when you comes across a situation where ethical issues are. Now let's discuss the example. That's more important. I have got one example with the name of Eclip company. So, Eclip is an entity which has a sole purpose of producing a new medicine to fight various diseases. The main purpose is to produce new medicines. Having secured a license to do so following successful initial trials, Eclip company employees consist of a highly skilled team of scientists. This is also a small support team under contract which carry out various administrative and accounting functions. Clinical tests undertaken by the team of scientists have been extremely encouraging, and is expected that the medicine will be on the market sometime within the next year. So this is background of the company. Now what happened with this company? On 31st March 2006, Luna company acquired, a parent company acquired Eclip company, this company, right? It was also decided that it would be important to retain the contracts of the team of the scientists, although not the administrative employees. They are going to lay off the administrative employees, but they are going to retain the scientists, okay? As they are considerably specialized knowledge and experience within the team. The only asset recognized in the individual financial statements of Eclip company at 31st March 2006 consisted of a license to manufacture the medicine and related development cost. However, Luna company estimates it was worth paying an extra 1.5 million in consideration in order to secure the skills and experience of the team of the scientists. So the company has to pay some additional amounts. So what is required in this case, we need to understand, discuss whether the acquisition of Eclip company should be treated as a business combination in accordance with IFRS 3. Remember, I told you, in most of the situation, examiner is going to provide you which standard actually applies. So here it's IFRS 3. Your answer should consider whether the skill and experience of the team of scientists can be recognized as a separate identifiable assets or not. So this question constitutes how many marks? 6 marks. So we should ensure that we will be answering the examiner for these 6 marks. Okay, let's see. As far as this question is concerned, the most important thing here is, we have already mentioned that we need to understand what standard does apply. And normally it's given in the question. So let's see. Over here, IFRS 3 business combination provides guidelines. Provide guidelines how an entity is acquired, or whether that entity constitutes a business or not. Here you need to understand the big guideline is whether it should be treated as a business or not. So if you are thinking about the business, then you must understand IFRS 3 provide guidelines. What is a business? So for every business, IFRS 3 mentioned that there should be three important aspects available. Number one, inputs. That is the most important aspect. Number two is the processes. The processes that convert the input into number third, the output, right? These three things actually constitute a business. Now, what are inputs? Inputs mean anything that can be inputted into the process, and this gives us an output which will result in economic benefit. Economic benefit to the entity. So what does economic benefit means? As we have already discussed, it means benefit of cash, or you can say simply it is a financial benefit. Financial benefit, the benefit of cash. So in this situation, we need to understand the aspects. What is a business process? So this is something IFRS 3 mentioned it as a business process, inputs, processes, and outputs. So once you have applied these things to the scenario of Eclip company, you will understand how it works. Now we need to go back to the background and we need to apply this scenario. Number one, inputs is the process, or inputs is what? Input is the team of scientists. Those are researching for a new medicine. And this new medicine can be sold on the market. So they are working on the new medicine. This medicine has already completed its development phase, the research phase, the development phase, and now they have secured a license. Now, with the help of this license, the company, Luna company, the parent company, is capable of producing those medicines, right, using raw material as well as the knowledge or the research or that specific knowledge to convert this raw material into production process, and then they will find out the finished goods, which is the medicine, and can sell it into the market, right, to the customers to gain a financial benefit. We have already discussed. So as far as this specific situation is concerned, yes, the Eclip company is actually a business. Now there comes another test which IFRS 3 mentioned as concentration test. So what does this concentration test means? IFRS 3. Now, first thing is you have provided what is a business. You have provided three guidelines as provided by IFRS 3 business combination, and you have applied those three basic guidelines to the scenario, and you determine that Eclip company is a business. But for further clarification, you need to understand what is this concentration test. Concentration test means, number one thing is that this asset or group of assets are separate from each other, right? So once you determine that these are separate to each other, that means number one was administration function, second one was accounting function, which we have acquired. Remember, administrative accounting function. Then you have scientific research or scientist, specialized or highly skilled scientist. And then you have a brand or a license. You can ignore this brand. Brand was not mentioned, so we can mention it's a license. So you have four different items. So if you can differentiate between these four, one thing, they have to lay off this administrative task. So if the company is going to lay off this administrative task, whether they are capable of generating these items or not, right? Again, we have already discussed the processes. Here, these three processes are very different from each other, and the scientists which you consider as an asset or the license as an asset are very different. Scientists are the individuals who are involved. Rather, we cannot recognize the scientist as an asset, despite the fact IAS 38 allows us to recognize scientists or the employee's skillful knowledge as an intangible asset, as far as the entity is capable of controlling those individuals only then. That means the company had a contract with these individuals, so they can recognize. IAS 38 does not prohibit recording an employee, but only thing is whether the entity is capable of creating a control over the employees or not. So what does this control actually means? Control means a company is capable of employing the individuals in a way that will help them to generate benefits. So that's something, one an important idea when you are recognizing the employees or the scientists as intangible asset of the company. But again, these two assets are different in nature. The rest of the functions, the accounting functions. Now, the third and most important thing, or the second most important idea, is whether the processes, you remember process we have discussed, processes involved are of such a nature that they cannot be replaced. That's something IFRS requires, replaced, or these are significantly different processes that a company cannot replace. Now, what the processes are there in scenario of Eclip company? Those involve the technical, the scientists, scientific knowledge, those possesses, and they're highly skilled professionals. So it is evident from the scenario that Luna company is not capable of replacing these individuals. For the same reason, the Luna company had paid $1.5 million extra value, 1.5 million, to retain these employees. So it's evident from the situation the company cannot replace. But at the same time, the company had replaced the administrative staff, right? Which is another idea for you guys that this situation exists. So it's so complex or significantly different process that company cannot replace it easily from the market. Now, to understand how we can replace it into the market, if there are certain activities involved, those are the main idea of the business. So we need to understand that such things So the company can replace this administrative staff and can hire someone from the market, and can replace those. But the company cannot replace these scientists. So it's a complex service provided by those scientists, and the company has to search out or incur significant cost to just get these new scientists. So it's a difficult process. Significantly different just means the company cannot easily get those services or those processes from the market. Or on the other hand, these services or these processes are not readily available to the company from the market. So this is another important area to understand how these actually works. Okay, just give you an example. Just an example here that what this significant thing mean. For example, there is a real estate company or a real estate company that has few properties that this company rent it out to certain tenants, right? Now, the company provides certain other services, for example, security service, cleaning service, or a person who is admin for these properties, administrating rent collection or rest of the aspects. Now, what do you think? Does this constitute a company? We would say this, these properties are of similar nature, that these are family houses, 10, 12 family houses, right? So all these family houses are of same nature. Now, the services this real estate company is providing are including just a security service, a cleaning service, and an admin service. These are easily replaceable from the market, right? Is it clear? It means these services are not significantly important, or these processes are not significantly important to the business. That means this real estate company does not constitute a business, but the Eclipse company is providing specialized nature of medicine to the customers. So if those scientists are not available, then the company cannot provide those services to the customers. So in this situation, we need to understand Eclipse company constitutes a business and should be accounted for as per IFRS 3 business combination. That would be the conclusion, right? So we have completed the whole question. This was the way you are going to answer your question.